The human starship Aurora Dawn glided through the endless dark of space, its metal wings reflecting the light of a golden sun. On board, a small group of humans sat in silence, watching as a great blue world came into view. This was Zareth, the home of the Zarethians, a proud and powerful alien race that had once fought against humanity. The war was over now, but the wounds between the two species still ran deep. Among the human envoys was Ryan, a young engineer chosen for his calm nature and his skill with alien technology. He was not a soldier or a diplomat. He was simply someone who believed that peace could be built with patience and kindness. As the ship entered the planet's atmosphere, he pressed his hand against the glass window, watching as cities of shining crystal and silver towers appeared below. The view was breathtaking when the Aurora Dawn landed on the Zarethian base. A group of tall alien guards waited in perfect formation. They were strong and graceful, with smooth silver skin that shimmered like moonlight. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, showing both wisdom and caution. Standing in front of them was Commander Lyra, a high-ranking officer of Zareth's defense force. She was known for her discipline and sharp judgment. Her presence demanded silence. Ryan followed the human leader, Captain Ross, as they stepped forward to greet her. The air was tense. The translator device hummed softly, turning alien words into human speech. "Welcome to Zareth," Lyra said. Her voice was calm and controlled. "We hope your visit will bring peace, not more questions." Ross nodded politely and spoke about rebuilding trust, trade, and cooperation. Ryan stayed behind, carrying his repair tools and scanning devices. He watched the aliens with curiosity. They were proud and distant, as if afraid to show emotion. When Lyra's eyes met his, he noticed something unusual. Behind her calm and perfect face, there was a trace of sadness. Something she tried to hide. The humans were taken to their assigned quarters inside the crystal base. The walls were transparent like glass, but harder than steel. Everything shined with a soft blue glow. It felt peaceful, but cold. Ryan set down his tools and looked out at the alien city. Flying crafts moved in the sky like silver birds, and tall towers reached for the clouds. It was a beautiful world, yet he could sense the emptiness that filled it. That evening, the humans were invited to a formal meeting with the Zarethian Council. Lyra stood beside them, her armor reflecting the light from the floating lamps. During the discussion, she spoke of rebuilding communication towers that had been destroyed during the last battle. Ryan was chosen to assist her with the project. After the meeting, Ryan approached her. "Commander Lyra," he said politely, "I'm honored to work with you." She looked at him for a moment before answering. "Humans are direct," she said. "Let us see if your skills match your words." The next morning, they began their work near the border of the Zarethian capital. The old communication towers were half buried under sand and crystal fragments. Ryan examined the damaged circuits while Lyra watched closely. "Your people built these towers with our help once," she said. "Then you turned them into weapons." Ryan looked up, his expression calm. "That was not me, Commander. I came here to rebuild, not to destroy." She studied him for a long moment. There was no anger in his eyes, only quiet determination. "Very well," she said. "Show me how you rebuild." They worked together through the day. Ryan explained his repairs step by step, speaking in simple terms. He didn't try to impress her. He only wanted her to understand what he was doing. Lyra listened carefully. She had never seen a human who spoke with such patience. Most of the humans she had met before were proud or nervous around her. Ryan was different. At midday, they took a short break. Ryan handed her a metal canteen of water. "Here," he said. "You must be thirsty." Lyra hesitated before taking it. Zarethians rarely accepted things from outsiders, but something about his simple gesture felt genuine. She took a small sip and gave it back. "Your world," she asked, "is it like ours?" Ryan smiled faintly. "No, Earth is full of green forests and deep blue seas. It's not as perfect as this place, but it's alive in its own way. Sometimes messy, sometimes peaceful." Lyra listened in silence. Her people rarely spoke about emotions or beauty. Everything on Zareth was built for order and purpose. She found it strange that a human could speak of imperfection as something beautiful. As the sun of Zareth began to set, the sky turned from blue to purple, and the glass towers shimmered with light. Ryan and Lyra walked back to the base together. Other Zarethians saluted her as she passed, but Ryan noticed how none of them met her eyes. She walked alone, even among her own kind. That night, as Ryan sat by the observation window in the human quarters, he thought about her. Lyra was strong and intelligent, but there was a quiet loneliness in her eyes. He wondered what it was like to live in a world where emotions were hidden behind armor. The next day brought a new challenge. One of the power cores near the tower malfunctioned. Sparks flew, and the system threatened to overload. Ryan rushed forward to shut it down, but the controls were in Zarethian language. Lyra stepped beside him, guiding his hands over the panel. Their fingers brushed for a second. She froze but didn't pull away. Together, they stabilized the system before it could explode. When it was over, Lyra looked at him, her eyes slightly softer. "You could have been hurt," she said. "So could you," he replied. For a brief moment, they both smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in years. As the days passed, Ryan noticed small changes. Lyra spoke more often, asking questions about Earth, about humans, about their families. Ryan told her about children who laughed in the rain. It's about music that spoke without words, about how people could argue and still care for one another. Lyra listened with quiet fascination. These ideas were new to her. One evening, while repairing the last section of the tower, Ryan saw her standing at the edge of the platform looking at the horizon. "You miss something, don't you?" he asked. Lyra turned to him slowly. "I do not understand your question." "You look at the sky like someone's searching for something," he said. For a moment she said nothing. Then she answered, "Our people were taught that emotion is weakness. But sometimes, when I see the stars, I feel something I cannot explain. Perhaps it is sadness. Or maybe hope." Ryan nodded gently. "It sounds human to me." Her eyes widened a little. "Human?" "Yes. To feel something and not know why. That's what makes us human." Lyra thought about his words as the wind brushed across the tower. She realized that the human beside her was not weak or foolish. He was strong in a different way, quiet. Inner strength that came from kindness. That night, when Ryan returned to his quarters, he found a small silver crystal on his desk. It was shaped like a star. No message was attached, but he knew who had left it. He held the crystal in his hand and looked out at the glowing city. For the first time since the mission began, he felt that peace between their two worlds might truly be possible. And somewhere across the base, Commander Lyra stood on her balcony, watching the same stars. She thought about the human who spoke with honesty instead of pride. She did not understand why his words stayed in her mind, but she did not push them away. The peace between humans and Zarethians was still fragile. But for the first time, something new had begun, something more than treaties and meetings. It was a simple connection born from respect, courage, and the smallest spark of trust. The sky over Zareth glowed with a soft golden hue as the morning sun rose above the crystal towers. Ryan adjusted his equipment on the edge of the platform while waiting for Lyra. Today was different. The air carried a quiet tension. Even the hum of the distant flying craft seemed softer. Lyra arrived shortly after, her armor reflecting the sunlight. She moved with perfect precision, but Ryan noticed a small change in her posture. She did not walk with the usual strictness. Her shoulders were less tense, and her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, softened slightly as she looked at him. "Good morning," Ryan said, smiling gently. "Are you ready for another day of repairs?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, let us begin." They worked in silence for the first few hours, aligning circuits and adjusting fragile panels. Each movement was careful, almost like a dance. Ryan noticed how naturally Lyra adapted to his style of working. She asked questions now, small but meaningful, about Earth and humans. Ryan answered each with patience, explaining the details without judgment. During a short break, Ryan leaned against a tower and watched the city below. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to live somewhere else?" he asked casually. Lyra looked at him, her face thoughtful. I have not considered leaving Zareth. It is my duty to remain here. But if you could? Ryan pressed gently. What would you choose? For a moment, she hesitated. Her people rarely spoke about desires, only duties. I do not know, she admitted quietly. Perhaps a world where decisions are guided by choice rather than expectation. Ryan smiled, sensing a rare honesty. That sounds like Earth in some ways. We make mistakes, but we choose. Sometimes we fall, but we rise again. That is what makes life beautiful. Lyra looked at him, absorbing his words. His gentle voice carried no judgment, only truth. Something inside her stirred a feeling she had long buried under discipline and duty. Later in the afternoon, while inspecting a particularly complex transmitter, Ryan noticed Lyra struggling with a small adjustment. He stepped closer to assist her. Their hands met briefly over the delicate panel. The touch was light, unintentional, but it sent a jolt through both of them. Lyra froze, her mind racing. She was not used to such closeness, not even among trusted allies. Ryan noticed her pause. Are you okay? He asked softly, looking into her eyes. Lyra nodded, though her heartbeat betrayed her calm exterior. I am fine, she said. Ryan smiled faintly. You seem tense. You can trust me, you know. She stared at him, unsure what to say. Trust was a foreign concept for her. On Zareth, trust was earned slowly and rarely given. Yet there was something about Ryan, his honesty, his patience, his quiet strength that made her want to believe. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon with shades of orange and violet, Ryan suggested a break. They sat on the edge of the platform, their legs dangling above the shimmering city. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken thoughts. You speak often of Earth, Lyra said softly. Why do you share so much with me? Ryan looked at her and shrugged gently. Because I think people should share what they love, even with someone who seems very different. Lyra's eyes lingered on him, searching for meaning. Humans were different indeed. They spoke of feelings openly, of beauty and joy, without fear. Zarethians did not. Their emotions were hidden, considered a distraction. But Ryan's words made her heart stir in ways she had never felt before. Then it happened. Ryan turned slightly toward her, his expression calm and sincere. You're beautiful, he whispered. Lyra froze completely. Her silver eyes widened, and she felt as though time had stopped. No one had ever spoken to her this way. On her planet, beauty was silent, something observed, but never acknowledged. It was considered a weakness to be named. Yet here was a human, a stranger in many ways, speaking it freely, without fear. For a long moment, she could not move, could not respond. Her mind raced through 1,000 thoughts, but her heart refused to follow. She wanted to feel anger for the audacity, but instead, she felt warmth. A strange lightness she had never known. Ryan waited patiently, his gaze steady and kind. He did not press her, did not demand a reaction. He simply let the words hang in the air, gentle but powerful. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would you say that? Ryan smiled softly. Because it is true. Her chest tightened. Truth was a rare thing on Zareth, especially one spoken so openly. She wanted to argue, to tell him that such things were meaningless, but she could not. She felt something she had never allowed herself to feel, recognition. Not as a commander, not as a symbol, but as a being capable of wonder and warmth. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly see him, not as a human to be wary of, but as a person who spoke honestly and cared genuinely. And in that seeing, something fragile and new began to grow. The next few days were filled with quiet tension. Lyra found herself thinking of Ryan more often than she should. She replayed his words in her mind over and over. She examined her reactions, confused by the mixture of fear, curiosity, and warmth that stirred within her. Ryan noticed the change as well. She was no longer distant in her interactions. She asked questions, lingered in conversation. and sometimes caught herself watching him when she thought he would not notice. Their teamwork continued, flawless as ever. But now it carried an undercurrent of something more, a subtle closeness, a shared understanding that needed no words. One afternoon, while repairing the central transmitter, a sudden storm rolled in from the mountains. Fierce winds and lightning threatened their work. Ryan and Lyra rushed to secure the delicate circuits. As they worked side by side, a bolt of lightning struck nearby, sending sparks across the platform. Ryan shielded Lyra with his body, taking a minor shock himself. "You could have been hurt," Lyra exclaimed, her voice sharp with concern. Ryan shook off the pain and smiled. "I am fine. Are you?" Lyra nodded quickly, though her chest was still tight. She had felt fear not just for herself, but for the human beside her. And she realized with a start that she cared more than she expected. After the storm passed, they sat on the edge of the platform, drenched and tired. The city below glimmered under the clearing sky, lights reflecting off the crystals like stars on the ground. "I did not expect your words the other day," Lyra admitted, her voice quiet. Ryan looked at her encouragingly. "You do not have to explain your feelings. Just knowing you are thinking is enough." Lyra studied him. "Humans are strange. You speak what you feel, and it carries weight. It is not easy for my people to understand that." Ryan shrugged gently. "Maybe it is the easiest thing. To speak the truth. It can change everything." Lyra did not answer immediately. She thought about her life, her duties, the rules that had always guided her. And she realized something remarkable. Those rules had never allowed her to feel this deeply, to connect this fully. A human had done what no one else could. That night, Lyra found herself unable to sleep. She walked to the balcony of her quarters and gazed at the stars. She thought about Ryan, about the words he had spoken, about the gentle honesty in his eyes. A warmth spread through her chest, sensation she could neither name nor ignore. Back in his quarters, Ryan held the small crystal Lyra had given him days before. He traced its edges, feeling the intention behind it. Their silent exchanges, the small gifts, the careful gestures, they all carried meaning, unspoken but profound. He smiled, knowing that the bridge between them was growing stronger. The next day, Ryan and Lyra continued their work on the tallest tower. From this height, the city stretched out in all directions, a maze of silver and blue. Ryan showed Lyra a technique from Earth to stabilize the circuits more efficiently. She followed his instructions carefully, their hands brushing again as they worked. "Humans are patient," Lyra remarked softly. "You repeat, explain, and do not grow frustrated." I have never experienced this before," Ryan smiled. "It is simple. Patience can build more than strength. It can build trust." She looked at him thoughtfully. Trust. It was a fragile thing for Zarethians, almost foreign. Yet she felt it growing in her chest, like a small flame protected by her will. And she realized that she wanted to nurture that flame, even if she did not fully understand why. By evening, the work on the tower was complete. They stood together at the edge, watching the city lights flicker on as night fell. Lyra felt a strange calm, a sense of connection she had never allowed herself to experience. Ryan turned to her, his eyes warm and steady. "You are remarkable," he said quietly. Lyra's breath caught. The words were simple, yet their meaning was powerful. She realized that humans could speak truth in a way that resonated deeply, in a way her people rarely allowed, and in that moment, she knew that her life, her perspective, and perhaps her very heart, had been changed by a single human whisper. The seeds of something extraordinary had been planted, an unspoken bond that neither duty nor distance could erase. The human had spoken what her world had never dared to, and in that honesty, Lyra found herself standing on the edge of a new understanding, ready to explore feelings she had long denied. The morning light on Zareth shimmered against the crystal towers, making the city sparkle like a jewel. The air was crisp, carrying the faint hum of distant flying crafts. Ryan stepped out onto the repair platform, tools slung over his shoulder. Today, he would continue fixing the communication towers with Lyra. The work was hard, but he didn't mind. He felt a strange comfort in the quiet rhythm of repair and construction. Lyra appeared shortly after, moving gracefully across the platform. Her silver skin glimmered in the sun, and her eyes reflected the soft blue light of her planet. She carried herself with the same pride and precision as always, but Ryan noticed a small shift. She did not look at him with the cold judgment that she had shown before. There was curiosity in her gaze. "Good morning," Ryan said, his voice gentle. "I brought extra tools today. Some of the circuits need careful handling." Lyra nodded. "I see you prepare carefully. That is good." Yeah. They worked together in silence for a while. Sparks flew as Ryan repaired a damaged panel and Lyra adjusted the alignment of a crystalline transmitter. Their hands occasionally brushed, and each time, Lyra's pulse seemed to quicken slightly. She was not used to touch from humans, and yet she did not pull away. There was an unspoken understanding growing between them. During lunch, Ryan shared a small meal of prepared rations. Lyra stood nearby, watching as he ate. "Why do humans eat like this?" she asked, holding a small piece of nutrient bar in her hand. Ryan smiled. "It's simple and fast. Sometimes we need to eat and keep moving. Other times, we take our time and enjoy the taste. Eating can be comforting." Lyra tilted her head. Comforting was not a word Zorethians often used. Their meals were functional, consumed without pleasure. Yet she found herself curious. She tried a small bite, and for the first time, she noticed a flavor that made her senses alert in a way she had never felt before. "Do this differently than your people here?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head. "Every human is different. We all try to find our own way to live, even in difficult times." The afternoon brought a challenge. A minor tremor shook the platform as the ground beneath them quivered. Ryan steadied the tools and checked the structure. Lyra acted immediately, signaling him to move to a safer section. Her reflexes were precise, and Ryan realized that she had trained for years to react without hesitation. "You are very fast," he said as they reached safety. "Speed is necessary," Lyra replied. "I do not allow mistakes." "But sometimes speed without care causes damage," Ryan pointed out gently. She regarded him with a steady gaze. "And sometimes care without speed causes failure." Ryan laughed softly. "I suppose you are right. That is why teamwork is important." The tremor passed quickly, leaving a small pile of broken crystal near the edge of the platform. Ryan knelt to examine it and Lyra joined him. Their hands touched briefly while picking up the fragments. This time, she did not flinch. A strange warmth grew in her chest, though she refused to acknowledge it, as evening approached. The sky turned a deeper shade of purple, streaked with red and gold. The city below glowed like a river of lights. Ryan and Lyra sat on the edge of the platform, resting after the day's work. For a long time, neither spoke. They watched the sky in silence, listening to the hum of the city and the soft wind that brushed past them. "You are quiet," Ryan finally said. "Do you not speak about your feelings?" Lyra looked at him, her expression guarded. "My people do not share emotions freely. They are considered a distraction." "I understand. On Earth, many people hide their feelings too, but sometimes sharing even a small thought can make a difference." She studied him. His honesty was simple, not calculated. Humans spoke directly, without hiding behind rules or fear. She did not know why, but his words made her think about herself differently. "Perhaps," she said after a pause, "there is value in speaking, even if it is unusual." Ryan smiled. "There is always value in trying." The next few days passed with more work on the towers. Ryan taught Lyra about the circuits, explaining in careful steps. She asked questions, sometimes simple, sometimes thoughtful, and Ryan answered every one. Their collaboration became seamless. They moved as a team, understanding each other without words at times. One day, as they were aligning a new transmitter, a sudden energy surge sparked a small fire. Ryan reacted immediately, shielding Lyra from the flames. He pulled her back to safety while the sparks danced around them. Lyra's eyes widened, and for the first time, she felt something she could not name: fear and relief mixed together. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan shook his head, brushing off his uniform. I am fine. Are you? She nodded slowly, though her heart was still racing. She realized that in all her years, no one had ever risked themselves for her so freely. The thought made her chest tighten in a way she did not understand. After the fire was extinguished, they sat together, catching their breath. Ryan offered her a hand, which she took hesitantly. Their fingers lingered for a moment, and she felt a strange warmth. Humans are brave, he said quietly. Ryan looked at her. Sometimes courage is not about fighting. Sometimes it is about caring. Lyra did not answer immediately. She thought about her people, trained to be strong, unemotional, and perfect. And yet, the human beside her had shown her a kind of strength she had never seen before. She did not know what it meant, but she felt drawn to it. That evening, Ryan shared stories of Earth. He spoke of oceans that stretched beyond sight, mountains that reached high into the clouds, and forests filled with the songs of birds. He told her about people celebrating festivals, dancing, and laughing together. Lyra listened, fascinated. Your world seems alive, she said. Ryan nodded. It is. And messy. Not everything is perfect. But people find joy in the imperfections. She looked at him carefully. Joy is not often discussed in my world. It does not mean it is impossible, Ryan replied gently. Lyra thought about this as she returned to her quarters that night. For the first time, she questioned the rules that had guided her life. Perhaps emotions were not weaknesses. Perhaps they could be a strength if one learned how to understand them. The next day, a sudden alert came from the city. A small landslide had blocked one of the main supply routes. Ryan and Lyra were sent to assist. They moved quickly, coordinating with precision. Lyra guided him through the safest paths, and Ryan used his tools to lift heavy debris. They worked side by side, speaking only when necessary. When the path was clear, they paused to rest. Lyra's breathing was calm, but Ryan noticed the tension in her shoulders. You carry the weight of your people, he said softly. She looked at him, startled. I do not know what you mean. You try to be perfect for everyone, he explained. You think about their expectations and forget your own needs. Lyra did not answer. She could not. His words touched something deep inside her, feeling she had never allowed herself to acknowledge, as the sun set again. Painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Ryan and Lyra returned to the base. She walked beside him, not behind, not in front, but equal. The quiet companionship they shared was new, fragile, and strangely comforting. That night, Ryan found another small crystal waiting for him on his desk. This one was shaped like a small flower, delicate and shining. He held it carefully, feeling the thought behind it. Someone had wanted to communicate without words. He smiled, understanding who had left it. Lyra, on her balcony, looked at the stars once more. She thought of the human who had spoken gently, who had taught her that strength and care could coexist. She did not fully understand her feelings, but she did not push them away. The human's presence had brought a new warmth to her life, and she realized that maybe she could learn to trust again. A fragile friendship had begun, built not on orders or expectations, but on respect and shared effort. In the quiet moments of work and conversation, they found a connection that neither had anticipated. It was small like the crystals of Zareth, but it shone brightly in the dark spaces between them. For the first time in her life, Lyra allowed herself to hope, and Ryan, looking at the stars beyond Zareth, felt that peace between humans and Zarethians might be more than a dream. It could be a future built together, one step at a time, with trust, courage, and a simple kindness that crossed worlds. The morning on Zareth was unusually bright, as if the sun itself had noticed the change in the air. Ryan and Lyra arrived at the central outpost where their work on the communication towers continued. The city below gleamed like liquid crystal, and the soft hum of the energy grids filled the air. Everything seemed calm, but both knew peace was fragile. Ryan carried his toolkit, a small smile on his face. We have a lot to finish today, he said, adjusting the straps of his pack. Lyra followed him, moving with precise steps. Her thoughts lingered on the events of the previous days. The words Ryan had spoken still echoed in her mind. "You're beautiful." They were simple, yet they carried weight, unlike any she had experienced. Her mind fought with her heart, unsure whether to reject the warmth she felt or to accept it. They began their work on the outer tower, repairing the circuits damaged by past storms. Ryan explained each step carefully. "These circuits are delicate," he said. "If we force anything, it will break. Patience is key." Lyra followed his instructions, hands steady, but she found herself stealing glances at him. His calm focus, the way he handled the tools with care, even the way he spoke a lot of it, made her feel something unfamiliar. Pride? Curiosity? Perhaps even admiration. She did not understand the sensation. She did not try to dismiss it. The day progressed peacefully until a sudden alarm rang through the outpost. Red lights flashed, and the distant sound of sirens filled the air. Ryan and Lyra shared a quick glance. "What is happening?" Ryan asked. "Raiders," Lyra said, her voice steady but sharp. "They have attacked the supply routes near the eastern perimeter. We must move quickly." Without hesitation, they ran toward the command center. Along the way, Ryan observed the efficiency and precision of the Zerethian defense teams. Lyra moved among them, issuing orders with authority, yet she paused once to glance at him, ensuring he was keeping up. By the time they reached the perimeter, the scene was chaotic. Raiders had broken through the outer defenses, their craft hovering low, sending down bursts of energy. Zerethian guards engaged them with skill, but the attackers were numerous. "Stay close," Lyra commanded to Ryan. "We will move together." Ryan nodded, gripping his tools and using them as improvised weapons when needed. They moved through the battlefield side by side. Lyra's precision in combat was breathtaking. She avoided attacks with fluid movements, countering with controlled strikes. Ryan observed her, impressed. But he also noticed her glances toward him, checking that he was safe. A small explosion rocked the ground nearby. Ryan ducked instinctively, shielding Lyra with his body. Sparks flew, and he felt a jolt of energy from the debris. Lyra quickly stabilized him and helped him to his feet. "You could have been hurt," she said, her voice tight with concern. "I am fine," Ryan replied, brushing off the impact. "Are you?" Lyra nodded, though her chest still raced. She realized that for the first time, she cared deeply for another person's safety, not out of duty, but out of something more personal. They pressed forward together, coordinating attacks and repairs. Ryan used his tools to disable small energy barriers, allowing Zerethian guards to flank the raiders. Lyra guided the troops with unmatched skill, combining strategy and courage. It was clear that she was not just a leader, but a protector of her people. During a brief lull, Ryan caught her off guard with a question. "Why do your people fight so hard, even after the war?" Lyra's eyes softened. "Because peace is fragile. Without strength, it can be lost." Ryan considered this, then said quietly, "Sometimes strength comes from care, not just weapons." Lyra paused, thinking about his words. In the heat of battle, she saw the truth in them. Ryan fought not to dominate or conquer, but to protect. His courage was different, fueled by empathy rather than pride. She had never witnessed this before. It left her unsettled in a way she could not name. As the battle reached its peak, a raider attempted to strike from behind. Lyra reacted instantly, pushing Ryan out of harm's way. Sparks flew, and the energy blast grazed her shoulder. She stumbled, but remained standing. Ryan caught her hand. "You are hurt," he said. "I am fine," she replied, brushing off the pain. But she did not remove her hand from his. Instead, she allowed him to guide her to a safer location. Once they were clear, Lyra examined her shoulder. The wound was minor, but it was enough to remind her of her own vulnerability. She looked at Ryan, who had been unflinching in protecting her. He had risked himself repeatedly, not out of orders, but out of care. The realization struck her hard. You fight differently than my people," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "I fight to protect, not to impress or dominate. I fight because people matter." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to respond, to say something profound, but words failed her. Instead, she nodded, acknowledging the truth in his statement. The battle ended with the raiders retreating, leaving the Zarethian guards exhausted but victorious. Ryan and Lyra surveyed the area, checking for damages and injured soldiers. The aftermath was quiet, almost peaceful compared to the chaos that had erupted moments ago. Lyra approached Ryan, her eyes thoughtful. "You could have left. You are not a soldier. Why did you stay?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because you matter." Her breath caught. The words were simple, yet their meaning was profound. For a Zarethian, loyalty and duty were expected, but choosing to stay out of care for another was extraordinary. She felt a surge of respect and something more in emotion she could not yet name. In the following days, Ryan continued his repairs on the towers, but now there was a new layer to their interactions. Lyra was more open, asking questions about Earth and humans, sharing small thoughts about her life and experiences. Ryan answered patiently, never pushing, always honest. One evening, after the final repairs of the day, they sat together on the edge of the platform watching the sun set behind the mountains. Lyra's posture was relaxed, and her usual guarded expression had softened. "You are unusual human," she said quietly. Ryan chuckled softly. "Unusual can be good, perhaps," she replied. She hesitated, then added, "You make me think differently. About strength, about care, about myself." Ryan turned to her. "It is not easy to change, but it is possible. Sometimes it starts with a single thought, a single action, a single word." Her heart skipped a beat. She remembered his whisper from days before. Beautiful. That word, simple yet powerful, had shifted something inside her. It had begun a change that even she could not fully comprehend. As night fell, the city below sparkled like a field of stars. Lyra and Ryan remained on the platform, sharing quiet conversation, laughter, and moments of silence that felt comfortable rather than empty. For Lyra, it was a revelation. She realized that strength did not require isolation, that vulnerability could coexist with discipline, and that care for another could be a source of courage. Over the next few days, Lyra observed the humans' interactions with the Zarethian guards. She noticed the differences. Humans spoke openly, showed concern without fear, and acted from the heart rather than protocol. Ryan embodied these qualities fully. Watching him, she felt a strange mixture of admiration and longing. She wanted to understand more, to feel more, to bridge the gap between her world and his. One afternoon, while repairing a high tower in the outskirts of the city, a minor tremor struck. A piece of crystal fell near Lyra, and Ryan reacted immediately, pushing her out of the way. The proximity forced them to stand close, their eyes meeting. Lyra felt the warmth of his presence, the steady reassurance of his hand on her arm. "You are always ready to help," she said softly, almost to herself. Ryan's gaze met hers. "I help because it matters, because people matter." The words resonated deeply within her. She realized that humans were capable of a type of courage that was rare among Zarethians, a courage born not of strength or training, but of care and empathy. She could not ignore the admiration and warmth rising within her. That night, Lyra returned to her quarters and gazed at the stars. She thought of Ryan, his gentle strength, his honesty, and his courage. She understood now that the human had shown her a world she had never known, a world where care was power and trust was strength. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to feel something freely. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble, replaced by curiosity, warmth, and hope. The human had changed her, not through force or command, but through simple honesty and care. And in that quiet moment, Lyra realized that the barrier between their worlds, between duty and emotion, protocol and care, could be crossed. She had begun to understand what it meant to be human in more than just words. She had begun to feel it. The early light of Zareth's sun glimmered off the crystal towers, filling the city with gold and silver reflections. The repairs on the communication towers were complete, and the once damaged outpost now stood stronger than before. Ryan and Lyra had worked side by side for weeks, their bond deepening with every challenge and quiet moment shared. The air between them carried unspoken understanding, But the end of Ryan's mission was approaching. Soon, he would return to Earth, leaving Zareth and its people behind. Ryan stood on the edge of the highest tower, looking out at the city below. His mind wandered to the countless hours spent repairing circuits, coordinating with the Zarethian guards, and quietly learning about the alien world. He thought about Lyra, her strength, her pride, and the small but significant ways she had allowed herself to be vulnerable around him. Lyra approached silently, her footsteps light against the crystalline platform. She stopped a few feet away, watching him with calm yet intense eyes. The bond between them was no longer fragile. It had grown, subtle but undeniable, shaped by shared effort, care, and trust. "You are leaving soon," she said quietly. Ryan nodded, turning to face her. "Yes. My mission ends today. I will return to Earth." Lyra's gaze lingered on him. She did not speak immediately, for she was unsure of what words could convey the depth of what she felt. Her people had taught her to suppress such thoughts, to prioritize duty above all else. Yet the human standing before her had shown her another path away to embrace feeling, courage, and care without losing strength. "Will you come back?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Ryan smiled gently. "I do not know. But I hope that one day our worlds can meet again. And when they do, I want to see it with honesty and trust between us." Lyra took a deep breath, her mind racing. She thought of the days they had spent together repairing towers, facing storms, calming fears, and sharing small conversations about life, Earth, and Zareth. And she realized that she did not want to let this connection fade. She began, then stopped. Her people would consider such words unusual, even inappropriate. But she found herself unable to stop. "If you go, I will miss more than just your presence. I will miss your honesty, your courage, and the way you see the world." Ryan stepped closer, closing the small distance between them. "I will miss you too," he said. "More than I expected? But this is not the end, Lyra. This is just a beginning." She looked at him, searching his eyes, seeing the truth in his words. And then, for the first time in years, she allowed herself to speak openly. "Then I will choose to believe in a beginning. I will choose to carry what I have learned from you into my life." Ryan extended his hand gently. Lyra took it, feeling warmth spread through her chest. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of trust, care, and newfound understanding. In that touch, the barrier between human and Zarethian, between duty and emotion, began to dissolve. Later, they walked together to the landing pad, where the human ship awaited. The city shimmered beneath them, alive with the quiet energy of Zaroth's people going about their work. The crystal towers reflected the colors of the rising sun, a reminder of how fragile and beautiful life could be. Before boarding, Ryan turned to Lyra. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pack. He handed her a small, transparent globe, inside which tiny lights floated like stars. "It is from Earth, something to remind you that the universe is larger than Zareth, and that you are part of it." Lyra held the globe carefully, feeling its weight and the intention behind it. She looked at Ryan, and for the first time, she spoke without hesitation. "Thank you. It is beautiful. Like you said, some things are stronger because they are chosen, not demanded." Ryan smiled, touched by her words. "Exactly. Choice makes all the difference." A soft hum signaled that the ship was ready for departure. Ryan turned to face the ship, his hand resting lightly on the railing. Lyra stood beside him, watching him with a mixture of pride, affection, and something she could only describe as hope. "Will you tell them about us?" Lyra asked quietly. "About what humans can teach, about what I have learned." Ryan nodded. "Yes, I will tell them everything. And I will tell Earth about Zareth too. We have much to learn from each other." The engines of the ship roared to life, and the craft lifted gracefully into the sky. Lyra watched until it became a distant speck among the stars. She felt a pang of longing, but also a quiet strength. She had learned something extraordinary from the human beside her, that care could be courage. Honesty could be power, and connection could transcend worlds. Days passed, and life on Zareth returned to its steady rhythm. Lyra resumed her duties, commanding her forces and guiding her people with precision. But her perspective had changed. She allowed herself moments of reflection, recalling Ryan's words, his actions, and the quiet moments they had shared. She began to speak more openly to her closest allies, sharing insights about empathy, trust, and the strength that came from care. Her people noticed a change in her. Lyra's decisions became not only precise, but compassionate. Her leadership inspired respect, not fear. And in private, she often held the small globe Ryan had given her, letting its gentle lights remind her of a human who had shown her a new way to live. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora Dawn, Ryan watched Zareth grow smaller beneath the ship. He felt a mixture of accomplishment and longing. The mission had been a success, but more importantly, a bridge had been built not just between human and Zarethian, but between two hearts that had learned to trust, care, and understand one another. He looked at the stars and whispered, "Until we meet again, on Zareth." Lyra gazed at the night sky. The stars shimmered as if responding to his words. She held the globe close and whispered back, "Until then." Weeks later, reports arrived of renewed cooperation between humans and Zarethians. Trade agreements were established, shared research programs began, and cultural exchanges opened. Lyra worked closely with human envoys. Guided by the lessons she had learned from Ryan, she encouraged openness, honesty, and care among her people. Slowly, the barriers that had divided the two worlds began to crumble. Through it all, Lyra carried a quiet memory of a human who had spoken a single truth, through so simple that it changed everything. "You're beautiful." Those words, coupled with his actions, had awakened something within her. They reminded her that strength and vulnerability could coexist. That courage could be born from care, and that connection could overcome distance, fear, and tradition. As months passed, Lyra often found herself returning to the balcony of her quarters at night, holding the globe in her hands. The lights inside it reflected her thoughts: hope, admiration, courage, and a newfound openness to the universe beyond her world. One evening, she looked at the stars and imagined Ryan among them. His hand extended in friendship, his heart open. She smiled, knowing that the bond they had formed could never be broken, even across the vast distances of space. It was a connection built on trust, care, and honesty, a bond that would guide her, inspire her people, and shape the future of two worlds forever. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, aboard a human ship traveling toward distant stars, Ryan thought of Zareth and of Lyra. He felt pride in their work, hope for the future, and a quiet certainty that the simple truth of kindness, courage, and care could change worlds. In the end, it was not the weapons, the towers, or even the technology that mattered most. It was the courage to care, the bravery to trust, and the honesty to speak simple truths. And through that, humanity had shown its strength once again, proving that across worlds, hearts could connect, barriers could fall, and beauty could be found in the most unexpected places. Zareth had changed. Humanity had changed it, and in the quiet of the night, Lyra and Ryan had both discovered something far greater than duty or mission. They had discovered the power of understanding, friendship, and the extraordinary courage of simply believing in one another. And with that, a new chapter began for both worlds, a chapter written not in conflict, but in trust, respect, and the enduring light of hope.